Avi, who I talk about all the time on here, he actually, last year sometime, was working at an office, and he, an office worker of his actually noticed that Avi would go on Wednesdays, go out to lunch, and he'd bring back comics with him, and he'd be reading them on his lunch break, and, you know, his friend got interested in it, and said, you know, can I come with one time to the comic shop? So Avi got him into Invincible and Ultimates, and one time they were at the office, and, you know, after lunch or whatever, they were reading what they had bought, and this guy goes to my friend Avi, he's like, he had an issue of Invincible, and this guy is in his, like, early 20s, I would say, if I remember correctly, and he walked over to Avi with a copy of Invincible, and he's like, you know what? How do I read this? Mm. And I was just like, and when Avi told me the story, I'm like, really? Like, he just doesn't... I just couldn't comprehend that nobody would know how to read a comic, but then I was thinking, well, we grew up with comic books, and we read comic books when we were kids, so, you know, that's when you're developing and such, and it just never occurred to me that people who don't read comics, who've gone 20-some years without reading them, just wouldn't understand how to read it.
It's funny you should mention that, because I had, on Free Comic Book Day, a few weeks ago, I gave a talk at the Roselle Public Library, and the librarian we were talking afterwards mentioned that advanced readers, we're talking a lot of the teens that come into her library looking for stuff to read, she tries to give them graphic novels to get into. And we're not talking about kids who are having struggles reading. We're talking they read novels. They'll read, you know, Tolstoy or Nietzsche or all these other writers that can sometimes be a little hard to get through. Yeah. They read the comic books, and it's just difficult for them to deal with going through from panel to panel, word balloon to word balloon, because the word balloons will overlap, and you have to accredit one word balloon to a particular character and the other one to the next. It's hard for them to do that because you have your left and right brain, you know, switching back and forth as you're reading the book. I think part of that is, yes, conditioning. But I think another part of that is how creators are putting the books together. Lettering in a comic book is hard to do. And to make it accessible to everyone, you have to be able to space the word balloons a certain way, and be able to lay them out in a certain way so that a person who's just picking up a comic book for the first time doesn't have that much of a challenge trying to read it. That just shows how good the letterers in our day, when we were growing up. I mean, look at an old Chris Claremont book. Okay, those things are wordy. And I remember Tom Warshikowski was the letterer in all of Chris Claremont's stuff back in the day when he wrote these things. You knew what Tom Warshikowski did. The lettering, the layouts were really simple to follow. You just sat there and you read it, and the artists even learned to lead a lot of negative space in the upper panels, because they know, oh, fucking Chris Claremont's going to fill this up anyway. Right. Why knock myself out doing all this landscaping stuff or, you know, background? That made it easier for us when we were young. You pick stuff up today. I mean, I know a poor lettering job can really turn me off to a book too, because I'm like, I don't know what the hell is going on here. Especially when both the letterer and the artist have decided to get a little too clever. They start doing that zigzagging stuff. Yeah. You know, and you have to follow the whole thing kind of like snake-like. The letterer kind of like
what they've been doing on Action Comics lately in splash pages.
Yeah, you're right. They have been doing that quite a bit on Action Comics, and it's really challenging. And that goes back to how do you get newer readers into these things? Because you and I read it, and, you know, I mean, it is challenging for us. Can you, like Avi's friend, how do you turn people onto that if they get that, and the book basically makes them feel dumb?
Yeah.
You know?
But to go back now to the part of Fringe, which I was going to get to, was, again, this is
another show that makes me feel dumb. But.
Yeah, well, it's not that hard. But it's just something that I guess that I take for granted as a fan of the genre and stuff is, again, one of Avi's co-workers, who watches Fringe, and the last 2 episodes of Fringe have dealt with an alternate reality, all right? Which, if you're a fan of Star Trek, if you're a fan of like any kind of science fiction or genre, everyone knows about alternate realities, especially in comics too. You know about alternate realities. So, but the second to last episode of Fringe, which he actually saw, dealt with Olivia's character straddling the line of this reality and another reality.
Right.
And this is the thing I like. This is the thing I like about Fringe, is that they don't really hold your hand on that show.
Right.
Either you know what they're talking about, or you don't, and you can just wait for them to explain it later on.
Right.
You know, so that whole episode, they talk about alternate reality like you know what an alternate reality is. Like, they don't need to explain it to you. They go into it more to follow in the next episode. But anyway, to try to wrap up this story, his friend in the office, this is a different person, by the way, he's friends with there. They were talking about Fringe, and she asked him, so what is an alternate reality? I didn't understand that. And I was and he told me the story again, and I had like the same exact, that's why I had telling these two stories together, because I had the same reaction. I'm like, how can they not know what an alternate reality is? But I guess if you're not into comics, and you're not into animation, you're not into like anything artistic, anything...
Or science fiction.
Right. Or anything like that, you just wouldn't know.
Those are...
And this person's like 28 years old.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of abstract, too. I mean, there are certain abstracts that people just aren't exposed to.
And I guess, I was just saying, I guess knowing all this stuff and learning all this stuff that we have since we were young, we just take it kind of for granted. That there's, that I guess, we might all be geeks and nerds or whatever, but in certain aspects, we know more than normal people.
Normal people?
Yeah, normal. Well, I don't consider myself normal.
The norms.
Yeah, the normies. But it's just interesting to me that there's just all these concepts that, like I said, that we just take for granted, that just, people who aren't exposed to that just can't comprehend it.
That is true. And I think, though, that's kind of, it's kind of a thing we should celebrate, and it's fun. I find it kind of, I don't want to say entertaining. I like it when other people have that. Ooh, what is that? Because we get so jaded when we see, stories about alternate realities and, that's been done a million times. We've seen it. But people who are discovering it for the first time, I think that's really kind of cool. And when people have those moments like, oh, wow, I never considered it that way. I mean, mind you, quantum physicists look at us and think we're dorks because, to them, like, we talk about alternate realities as a, as a story device. They look at it as reality. They go,
and that's how they handle it on Fringe, though.
Yeah. So, again, they're all different levels, and I guess,
there's always someone to be smarter than you. I was
going to say, because we're totally coming off as nerds here.
Oh, I know we are. But it's just, you could be worse things. You could be a normie.
A normie.
Yeah, you don't want to be one of those.
Don't want to be one of those.
And have your eyes closed to all of these amazing things.
All these amazing things. So, hey, it's a matter of just introducing your friends and your family into new ideas. And it's not just comics. It's television. It's manga. It's there's so much that we can get exposed to through other mediums, not just stories, but cultures and new points of view, which is what makes indulging in this sort of thing really great. It's more than just escapism. It's a way of learning about the human community, which I really enjoy, and that's why I call this a comic culture warrior, because this is a culture. It's a medium and it's a culture. Anything else?
No, I think that's it. I think it's good enough.
Just so you folks know, for those of you, because you remember Jose was giving me shit about this last time, I finally read Gantz Volume 4. Okay? Don't get me wrong. This volume, just as good as the previous three. This is a really good manga, but it's depressing as hell. It's just really depressing.
That's part of its charm.
I know, it's depressing the shit out of me. But we'll probably talk a little more about not only Gantz but other manga in future segments, because you guys have.
Well, I have a chance here. We'll show you some art because I actually can't really get up this close But the art in here is just...
that is incredible artwork.
I mean...
that is just... I look at that and...
exploding heads, look at that.
And that's cranked out on a week-to-week basis, right?
Well, but Japanese comics are completely different the way... because it's a studio putting it together. It's
not just, it's not just one person doing it.
Okay. In the first volume, they actually showed you all the different steps that they do to take and how many people actually work on it.
Yeah.
There's something for the fanboys right there. These were the chapter breaks that Elliott was having a problem with.
Okay, see, here's the problem, okay? Because he was giving me so much shit about not reading this, right? So I'm reading it on the train coming home, and I have to be careful because at certain chapter breaks, there are some naked boobs. This chick with the boobs pops up. I don't want the people who are sitting right next to me to think I'm some kind of pervert. But
again, going back to
porn or something,
But getting back, I mean, these are read on trains and buses all over Tokyo and Japan, and it's like nothing.
I know,
but here, Elliott's got to like.
America is a Puritan nation. I mean, we are all. I'm not worried about people seeing the exploding heads. I'm not worried about that at all. The exposed
that's an American
boobs.
Thing.
That's the issue. And mind you, I'm not a prude about it. I don't care. I just don't want people. I just know that someone's going to bend over, look at the book, and go, huh? Wow, you like naked girls, huh? Something like bullshit like that. But a really good book, and
really fun too.
Fun. I'm thinking about getting into Battle Royale now too.
Yes, I'm gonna let him borrow those, but there's 15 volumes, so you can expect a review 5 years from
now. All right. Okay, folks. Well, thanks for joining us. And for those of you who came in on the beginning of the segments, yes, Jose is still here. Without Jose, there is no Comic Culture Warrior YouTube channel.
No, there isn't.
You
guys are stuck with me.
And we look forward to reading your comments and getting even more of your suggestions. So, until next time, we'll see you.